Would you like to have a charcuterie board that serves as both a decorative centerpiece and a functional serving platter? Impress your guests with this unique design and versatility. From wine and cheese nights to dinner parties, this reversible board is perfect for any occasion. Hello, my crafty friends. I'm Donna from Mason Creations, etc., and welcome to my channel. Enjoy watching as I create this two-faced wooden masterpiece. Let's make a mess, my friends. I just love this round cutting board. Not sure if you guys know this, but here's a great way to remove store stickers. Just heat it up with a heat gun or blow dryer, and it just peels right off. My crafty friend Horselivin requested a cutting board that was usable on one side and decorated on the other. Horselivin, this video is for you. Now I'm going to give this a quick sanding with some medium grit sandpaper, just to make sure it's nice and smooth before I begin, especially around the edges, and I'm making sure to wipe off all the dust. I'm going to paint the back of the board with Dixie Belle chalk paint in the color cotton, which is white. I'm only going to decorate the back of the board. The front will remain untouched so it can be used for serving food. I really like Dixie Belle chalk paint. It's one of my favorites. It goes on so smooth and creamy, unlike some other chalk paints. There are some dark spots on the wood, so I'm going to give it 2 coats for good measure, letting it dry about 30 minutes between coats, and another 30 minutes after the second coat. This and all the products you're going to see me use today came from decoupagenapkins.com, my wonderful sponsors. I had so much trouble picking out which image on this rice paper to use. They're both so darn cute, but the top one was more round, so that's the one I went with. I just love the strawberries in the head garland, and we're going to bring those strawberries to life today. I'm using a water brush to separate the images and then round out the picture. A water brush has a cartridge that you fill with water and then brush it on the napkin or rice paper. The water dispenses easily, so this is really convenient. You can find this in my description box below in my favorite tools section, just in case you want to check it out. You always want to tear your rice paper or napkin instead of cutting it. A torn edge is much easier to blend than a sharp cut edge. I'm measuring to make sure I get the little pig in the center of the board. Now I'll decoupage my paper in place. I'm using Polyvine's Decorator's Varnish as my decoupage adhesive today. You can use this product as a varnish and an adhesive. All the Polyvine formulas can double as a decoupage adhesive. It works so much better than the most popular brand of decoupage glue. It's not a glue, so it doesn't go on thick and lumpy. It's a varnish, so it dries crystal clear and will never yellow. Make sure you always paint white or a very light off-white wherever you're going to decoupage rice paper or a napkin. White allows the colors in your images to look more vibrant. Dark colors will make your images look dark and muddy. I cut a piece of plastic from a Ziploc bag, sprayed it with some water, then laid it on the image and smoothed out any wrinkles or bubbles with a paper towel through the plastic. When doing this, make sure you always wet the plastic first, or it will stick to your rice paper or napkin, pulling it off. I let my decoupaged image dry for a couple of hours, and now I'm going to seal it, paying close attention to the edges of the paper. I'm using Polyvine Heavy Duty Wood Varnish in the satin finish. I'm going to be painting up to and over the edge of the paper. Without a gloss sealer on the edges, the paper will just soak up the paint and you'll be able to see exactly where the edge of the paper is when it dries. I want to disguise those edges and not call attention to them, so gloss sealer is the key. I had this paint left over from another project, and I'm glad I didn't throw it away yet. If I add a little white, it'll be perfect for this project. I'm matching it to the peachy pink background color of the rice paper. My original mixed paint was made with Pentart compact powder and rose. I'm going to need to add a little more of the compact powder and quite a bit of white to make it work. I always mix up my paints in these little 2-ounce plastic containers. They have a lid so my paint will stay fresh for at least the duration of my project. And when you're finished with your project, you can just throw them away. I don't want to have to mix this color again should I run out, so I always mix a little more than what I think I'll need. Matching it again a second time would be almost impossible. I'm going to do an ombre fade from that very light peachy pink color to white. I'm starting off going around the perimeter of my image with a stiff brush so I can get into some small areas, and I'm going over top of the paper. If you blend your newly mixed color on top of the color on the paper, they look like they belong together. DecoupageNapkins.com has such a great selection of napkins that you can purchase one at a time. They carry many other craft supplies such as rice paper, paint, clay, molds, and a great selection of Polyvine products. Over 9,000 products and growing. They are wonderful to work with and will send your order out fast. You'll receive free shipping on orders over $75 and special bonus points for orders over $100. Subscribe to their newsletter by entering your email address and you'll receive 10% off your next order. They are truly your one-stop shop for craft supplies. Make sure you check them out. I'll be leaving links for all the products I use in my description box below, as well as more information on the previously mentioned promotions. Please note that any of these promotions are subject to future changes. Now I'm bringing in the sponges because they are the best for getting a nice smooth blend between your colors. I'm using my sponges and going back and forth with my colors until the line between them disappears and the two colors just softly blend together. If you want to see a video tutorial on exactly how to do ombre painting, click the banner at the top right of your screen. I'll also leave you a link for this video in my description box below, as well as at the end of this video. Where are you watching from? Let me know in the comments. It's fun to see what cities and countries you are all watching from. I'm filming from Las Vegas, Nevada in the United States. After the paint dried in about 30 minutes, I gave it a coat of Polyvine heavy-duty wood varnish and satin finish to protect my paint. Now here's how to get an incredible shine with the satin finish heavy-duty wood varnish. After an hour and my first coat of heavy-duty wood varnish is dry, I'm sanding with some fine grit sandpaper very lightly and wiping off the dust. This time I'm going to use Polyvine's varnish brush to apply the heavy-duty wood varnish. This brush is designed to eliminate brush strokes and leaves a beautiful self-leveling shine. You can do this same procedure more than once. Keep sanding and adding another coat until you get the desired shine. Just make sure you let it dry for at least an hour between coats. 2 or 3 coats of this gives you a beautiful shine that's moisture and high heat resistant, as well as high chemical resistant, high stain resistant, high abrasion resistant, and food safe. This works wonderful on any painted or decoupage surface or shiny surface that has been coated with Polyvine multi-surface lacquer. I let that dry for an hour between each coat and an hour after the final coat. I've had a few people ask me if this varnish has a strong smell. No, it does not. It's water-based, so there are no harmful fumes at all. I'm going to show you something new and fun today. Have you heard of woodubend? They are appliques that look, feel, and react just like wood. However, there's one difference. If you heat it up, you can bend it and cut it easily with a craft knife. I want to separate these roses because they're too big for this round plaque. I'm going to use my heat gun to heat it up so I can cut it. If you don't have a heat gun, you can use a blow dryer as well. But make sure it's nice and soft before you try to bend it or it will snap. And the warmer and softer it is, the easier it is to cut. Once it's warm, you can actually bend this around a jar or reshape it. I found it really nice to work with. It's an easy way to get appliques without the mess. I'm going to sand all the edges where I made cuts. It sands really nicely and you don't have to heat it up to sand it. These I want to split up between the rose appliques, so I'm going to cut them as well. I test all the products that I recommend in my videos. I won't recommend anything that I haven't used myself and prefer. If I'm recommending it, you can bet it's a great product. Each product will be listed in my description box below and will have a blue link to make it easy for you to find. Any of the links I provide are safe for you to click on. Look how soft this gets. Once it's warm and soft, you can bend it around anything and glue it down. Now it's time to paint all my appliques. Since I'm gluing them on a flat surface, I'm painting them before I glue them to my plaque, unlike how I do it when working with air dry clay. I'm using that same light color that I mixed up for the ombre on the background, and I'm using it for the roses. I'm using Pentart Vintage Green for all the leaves and my scrolls. The paint turned out really nice on these appliques. They have a smooth finish on them, so the paint turned out really smooth. I let the paint dry for about 30 minutes, and then I gave them all a coat of heavy-duty wood varnish to get set up for the next layer. I let it dry for about an hour. I'm mixing up a darker peachy pink to shade the roses with. I want it to blend with the dark colors in the rice paper. I started with the original two colors, compact powder and rose. I wanted to darken it up a little bit, so I added some paint in the color mallow. It still wasn't quite right, so I added some red. I just kept adding colors until I liked the way it matched. I think it's perfect now. It matches the dark color inside those cute little pig ears. I'm going to do something very similar to antiquing, which is why I sealed everything first. I'm adding a tiny bit of paint to the lid and then thinning it out with water. I'm brushing it on the rose and then wiping it off quickly with a soft dry cloth. It's just thinned paint and not an antiquing glaze, so if you leave it on there too long it will dry. If I hadn't sealed them with a gloss first, none of the thinned paint would have wiped off. I'll do all 4 of these and let them dry for about an hour. I'm using Pentart paint in the color Pine Green to do the same thing with the scrolls. Again, I thinned out the paint with water, paint it on, and wipe it off right away. I'll do the same thing to all 4 of the scroll pieces, as well as the leaves on the rose pieces. This adds some really nice shading. I am going to be doing some antiquing as well, so I'll let everything dry for about an hour, and then I'm going to seal all of them again, and then let that dry for an hour before antiquing. I know it's a lot of sealing, but if I don't seal what I just did, the antique will grab onto the thinned paint that I just added. None of the antique would wipe off, so the results would be less than favorable. I used some DOS clay to make some strawberries that I'm going to paint red. I also made some leaves and little flowers. I'm not sure quite how I missed filming making these little embellishments, but I did. I'm sorry, my friends. If you want to see an in-depth video on how to work with air dry clay, click the banner in the top right corner of your screen. I'll also leave you a link for that video in my description box below. I'll be painting the flowers white with yellow centers, and the leaves will match all the other leaves and the squirrels. I'm sure you guys have noticed that I use a lot of Dixie Belle and Pentart paints. These are my absolute favorites. They both go on super smooth and creamy with really good coverage. I rarely, if ever, need a second coat of Pentart, and that goes for the metallic colors as well. I let all the paint dry for about 30 minutes and then gave all my little embellishments a coat of heavy-duty wood varnish. I let the varnish dry for about an hour. Now it's time to antique all my embellishments. I'm using folk art antiquing medium in the color Wooden Bucket Brown. It's already pre-mixed and ready to go. I added a little bit of water because I prefer my antique a little thinner. I'm brushing it on and wiping it off with a soft dry cloth right away. It will wipe off the surface but remain in all the crevices. I'm doing the berries, flowers, leaves, roses, and squirrels. Antiquing adds a lot of dimension to your pieces. It takes them from flat looking to 3D. I'm working on some great spring projects right now. A lot of them are requests that I'm excited to be making. I love planning projects around your requests. Just please be patient. I get quite a few of them, and I get the projects out as quickly as I can. I love hearing about what you'd like to see, so keep those requests coming. If you're enjoying this video, please let me know by hitting that like button. And why not share this with a friend? Thanks for doing that. You won't want to miss any of the new projects coming up, so don't forget to subscribe. I'm using Pentart paint in the color Butter to add the little strawberry seeds. And oh boy, this is tedious. I'm using a brush that's made for nail art. It's very fine and works really well for such detail work. I'm putting a little dot inside each crevice in the strawberry. After I was done with all my little dots, I did some dry brushing with the red. I just put a little bit of paint on my brush, then wiped most of it off on a napkin, leaving the brush almost dry, then dragging just the tip of my brush over the strawberry. This covered up any paint mishaps with the butter or any antique that didn't quite wipe off the surface. I let all my paint dry for about 30 minutes, and now I'm giving everything a final coat of varnish and let that dry for about an hour. I'm going to start gluing all my embellishments on the board. I'm giving it a quick sanding around the edges. I just want to rough up the surface a little bit so I don't have any problems with adhesion. Normally you'd use wood glue and attach the applique pieces to raw wood, but I did it a little backwards today. I wanted to paint my board first because I did the ombre fade. If I had glued the appliques on first, they would have been in my way while painting the ombre fade, but roughing it up a little bit gave me a nice surface to glue on. After I laid everything out to see exactly where I wanted to attach them, I'm heating up each applique and pressing it down on the board to make sure it's nice and flat. Because remember, heat softens them up, so that way you can press them down to conform with the shape of the board. I'm using Aleene's tacky glue to attach my pieces. I use this instead of wood glue because it dries clear. Wood glue dries the color of wood, and that won't do with my white background. Now I know I always tell you to do things asymmetrical, but in this case I wasn't able to do that. I had to have the roses top, bottom, and two sides to keep it balanced when it's turned over. When I start adding the strawberries, I'll be adding them in random places, which will give the finished product an asymmetrical appearance. I've laid out all the strawberries, flowers, and leaves where I want them to go. Now I'm going to start gluing them down. Any glue that seeped out from the pieces I attached, I wiped off right away with a clean, damp brush. The strawberries just make this plaque. I love the way this is turning out. Because I didn't put any paint or varnish on the back side of the board, you are able to use this as a charcuterie board or for serving any other food items. I just can't tell you how much I love this smiling little pig. I used Pentart metallic gold paint to get the centers of all the flowers. I decided that gold was much prettier than the yellow. I also dotted the centers of all the flowers in the rice paper so they'd match. I'm using the antiquing medium again, but I'm adding a little more water than I did before. I'm going to antique around all my embellishments, but I don't want it to be heavy. I just want a light antique to make everything stand out and give it some depth. Again, I'm brushing it on and then wiping it off right away with a soft, dry cloth. I let the antiquing dry for about an hour and then gave the entire top of the board a final coat of polyfine heavy-duty wood varnish and let that dry for an hour. There are quite a few layers of varnish on here, but if you're going to use this for food, you'll need to be able to wash it. Heavy-duty wood varnish is water resistant, but you're going to need several layers for the best protection. It's also food safe, so if any food accidentally touches the decorated side, you don't need to worry. I'm going to highlight the roses, leaves, and scrolls with a gold wax rub by Redesign in the color Eternal. This always adds so much richness to your pieces. I'm putting a small amount of the rub on my finger and rubbing it together with my thumb. Smearing it around like that prevents a large amount of your product ending up in one place. This plaque will need to cure for 5 days before use. After that, you can load it up with cheese, crackers, fruit, and whatever else you can think of. Please don't submerge this in water or put it in a dishwasher. This is going to be hand wash only. I let the wax rub dry for a few hours, and now I'm buffing it to a beautiful shine with a soft, dry cloth. Don't forget, all of the wonderful products I'm using today can be found at my favorite place for craft supplies, decoupagenapkins.com, and I'll leave you links in my description box below. I used some food-grade mineral oil to rub down the raw wood side of the board. The mineral oil prevents your board from drying and cracking, as well as keeping bacteria at bay. You should oil your boards periodically. I've added a link to a video that I think you may enjoy. Click the picture on the right to be taken directly to that video. I'm so happy you were here with me today, and thanks so much for watching. I can't wait to see you all next week. I'm working on a new project with you in mind. You can subscribe by clicking my picture in the top right corner.